TikTok, I'm gonna tell you,
yeah,
is great, but it's the worst because you'll go there and you're like, okay, I'm just going passing time.
Yeah.
An hour goes by, and then a guy comes on screen like, "Hey, you've been scrolling for a long time." You're like,
"Have you drank water today?" And you're like, "You're right." Like, I haven't.
Start to get you like. They said like your For You page gets like real scary because sometimes you're just like, how did you know? Like, I didn't even know. Like, I didn't even admit that to myself yet. You know that that's what I am. Like, how did that happen?
Hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're
the Ghouls Next Door. Talking about spooky stuff.
As we do, man.
Yes, and we have a special episode. It's been a minute since we've done a fun interview and not just ranted about capitalism.
Mm-hmm. For the other systems that be.
Yeah. We're not stepping too far away from ranting about systems of oppression, but we get to do it in a little more relaxing way. And so today we're going to be talking to a phenomenal filmmaker that I am incredibly appreciative of, to interact with in many spaces and just throughout my filmmaking career, just being connected to her. And the minute I heard she had a short horror film, I was like, that's it, it's happening. I was like, Kat, this is going on.
Yeah, you did. I was there. You messaged me and you're like, we're interviewing Shameka. I was like, okay, cool. And then I saw the film and I was like, oh my God, okay, cool.
I was like, right? Yeah. If any film was made for the Ghouls, this is definitely it. So we are going to be bringing in Shameka Sawyer.
Hello.
We get big fans. Yes. Well, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about your film, GRWM, Get Ready With Me, and spooky horror film that is... We'll get into it because I'm already my brain is going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But to introduce you to our listeners, Shameka is an award-winning Black film and media producer. She is the founder and creative director of Five Shorts Project, one of the few film production companies in Philadelphia, owned and operated by an African-American woman. And it is a great program. It's just so many amazing projects have come through there. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and Five Shorts?
Sure. So, again, I'm Shameka Sawyer. I got into filmmaking when I was in college. My major was communications, and I had to find an elective. So I decided to take up video production and cinematography. I'm a little bit because when I started that, I was also doing funny videos with my oldest brother at the time, but he had passed away from cancer. So I started getting more into film while I was at school. And then I created the Five Shorts Project as a way to feel closer to my brother because I missed the things we used to do together. But also I wanted to connect with local filmmakers who were creating some phenomenal stuff. So it started out with just filmmakers, people who already knew how to make films, getting together and making short films. As time went on, more people were interested in learning the process of filmmaking who had no experience at all, not even writing the script. So I transitioned the project to teaching people who didn't know how to make films, teaching them how to make the film, from turning their idea into actual script and then into a short film. And then once all the films are done that we work on, we have a red carpet premiere to premiere the film. So I wanted to give them the whole experience as best as I could here in Philadelphia. So there it is
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
And you do, like we met through PhillyCam, which is,
Yeah.
a home for people who just want to make some content and have no idea where to start and don't know what resources are there. So I always appreciated Five Shorts because oftentimes PhillyCam is very focused on TV programming. We have a lot of regular television shows, but not so much the filmmaking process, which can be completely different beasts. And as far as production goes and planning and getting actors, and there's just so much more you have to consider. And it's amazing to have that support system, to have this mix of people, because it's the people who are involved, they're pitching their own ideas, but they're also helping on the other projects, right?
Yes, they do. They actually do help out one another, whether it's finding locations, finding actors, working as a production assistant, working on camera, sound. It turns into a collaborative effort at the end of the day between all of us. And I do want to mention PhillyCam was very instrumental in me starting Five Shorts. I had the membership and I was like, what can I do with this? So I actually held my first meeting for Five Shorts at PhillyCam and I've been there ever since. So shout out to PhillyCam.
Yes, yeah. If you're in Philadelphia, make sure you check us out. It's a great place to start. If you just have an idea and you're like, what do I do? Great networking place as well. And you've been pretty foundational in just even my growth as a filmmaker. I remember when I first was working at PhillyCam, having you on a panel about a short film that you had produced, and there was this whole discussion of you weren't seeing yourself represented in film, or it was hard to get roles, and so it was I'll make my own film and then I have my own reels and I could do it. And I was like, that's genius. Why did I do that? To the point where that's influence what we do. A big part of the reason why we act in our films is one, it's convenient, but also because it's who else is gonna come to bat for us but us, at the end of the day.
Exactly. And I really feel like we need more women voices behind the camera, writing the scripts, shooting and acting. I mean, it's different for me when I'm on a production where a guy is a director against a woman being a director. Yeah. And I think as women, we do set the tone. I'm sorry, guys. We set the tone.
Yeah.
We know how to organize, coordinate everything, and we have all the answers all the time. So
yeah, it's already been thought out. There's already plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z. And everyone knows what's happening when. And it's also I would say a more welcoming space too.
Yes.
There have been some sets I've been on that have been very male centric, where I'm just ooh.
Very intense, right? We're just going to be more intense.
Yeah.
It's a total change in vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then working with femme presenting or even non-binary. I remember one production I worked on with Osley Dukan, and it was completely transformative. I was everyone's helping everyone. They're not in their little silo pockets of I do this job. Everyone's just let's work together and really bring this production to be what we want it to be. And we need more of that. We need more of those spaces, 100%. Yes. The other thing I wanted to mention before we hop into this is that your film and then our film Jolly Butcher has been screening as part of Cinespeak. But Cinespeak, which is an amazing local organization, is screening both of our films, which is I was oh my God, this is crazy. What an honor to be in a festival screening, alongside you. But I was reminding Kat and talking about it that because we have a few short films, but the only other time our films have ever been screened is at Five Shorts, red carpet, and that you had asked, and I was just oh my God, this is so cool.
Listen, it was really well done what you guys did. I loved it. It was funny. It was entertaining. It was engaging. And I was well, it's Gabe. We go back. Right? And I'm I would love to show this at Fire Shorts because I want, the people that we're connected to also, learn about you guys and what you're doing with your podcast and all the amazing films you're making. So it was like a no-brainer for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I just like super appreciate that. Like it meant the world to us to like hear people laugh at our silly jokes like in person or like to like have those reactions. Like we
Yes.
wouldn't have had that without you. So we just want to say thank you so much for that.
Yes.
Yes.
As you looked it up on my phone, it is towards the other side, local film
Towards
shorts.
the other side,
There
not
it is.
through the
So
other side.
super close.
I knew the other side was involved.
It was long. It was a long title. I had to scroll to find it. So.
Well, Kat, why don't you tell us what GRWM is about?
Yes, get ready with me. Jess, a micro social media influencer, is dealing with the weight of society on her shoulders. Her anxiety meds cannot save her from a visitor waiting patiently to show Jess's virtual audience her true identity.
Mm-hmm. So I was like, that grabbed me. I was like reading it and I was just like, first of all, what's a micro social media influencer? And I was quickly educated on what that is. And I was like, I think I'm a micro social media influencer. I was like, that's something I can aspire to. Instead of like, all the way out there.
Right.
But I want to ask, like, where did you come up with the idea to do this horror film?
Yeah, so like many others, you're on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, and you see individuals who are making these really great videos, promoting products or just showing you a day in their life. And I always wonder, who are they really outside of who they show us on screen? What's the other side of them that they're not showing us? Who is that person? So that kind of inspired Jess, my character in this film, like just the creation of her being one thing in front of the camera and having her visitor show up at not so great times for her. So yeah, it was a little bit of that. And then also too, I wanted to touch on, with women of color, the pressure in society to put on a mask, as I put in the film, like wearing this mask of you don't really feel like you can actually be yourself 100% because of all of the stereotypes out there. You don't want to be reduced to that. So many of us, it's called imposter syndrome. You try to present a part of you that's not truly authentic, but because you want to fit in and feel like you don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So you create this persona that you show to the world. And I just wanted to touch a little bit on why, especially Black women have this issue with imposter syndrome and feeling like they cannot really be themselves. So that's what the monologue in the film was all about.
Yeah, it's a great exploration of like the social media, like who we are here and then who we are on the screen that we're putting out there. This like, persona, like this alter ego that you have. And especially thinking of like young people too, who like have had that their entire lives, like the younger generations, like never had not that. So they've always like had these
entire lives on TV.
Yeah, which I is so interesting. And I'm going to pass it over to Kat, but I just wanted to remark on like this, like there's like an intimacy that we feel with. I forget what the term is, but there's like a closeness that we have with quote unquote celebrities or like social media personas where they feel like they're your friends. Like we feel like we have some ownage, like we own parts of them. And like, because we're fans and there's like that intimacy there because they're accessible. They're right there on that screen. But also like with the fact that like there's, parts where this visitor comes in and there's shock from like the viewers. And that was like jolting to me because it is like they are very accessible and they're right there, but they're also so far away. Like when we see something like that happen, what can we do? Like as viewers, we're like, oh, and that's like, and then it gets farther than that because what it actually is like you're even farther from that. Like it's not even something that you can like call the cops and be like,
Right.
there's somebody in there. Like that's not.
Yeah, because you don't know their address. You don't actually know who they are. They're just an internet person. Like you don't have any context.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, like even just thinking of like the Gabby Petito thing that was going on, really
Right.
tragic. And like but at the same time, I'm sadly blanking on her name, but I saw a post that there was a young Black woman who was also a social media person who went missing from the same area. No reports, nothing.
Right.
Like, and for like similar reasons too. And so it's just like, it just stacked on stacked. I was like, there's so many layers to just the experience of Jess in such a short amount of time that is really amazing, like in the way that it's kind of thread through. And I think it's relatable on so many levels for different people who might be experiencing those similar traumas.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, 100%. I actually had a question in here that was like literally every.
Sorry.
Like, no. Like literally, like your first explanation was like so perfect because I was literally like, this resonated so much, and I felt like Jess was like such a relatable character. And I remember seeing like a TikTok kind of about like the anxieties specifically that like BIPOC face in like this persona that they have to put on because the reality is that the world is dangerous for them to be their authentic self. And I thought the use of anxiety as like a diagnosis was really powerful. And I was just curious, like, what made you pick anxiety specifically? Was there like personal motivations or kind of just pulling from experience?
Yeah. I would say it's weird because most people know that I lost both of my brothers. And prior to that, I didn't deal with anxiety that much, right? But after losing them, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know, I lost protection or something. So at times I get extreme anxiety, like to the point where I don't even want to go outside. Like it's really that bad. And so I tried to play on what causes that. Like what would cause me to feel like one day I'm okay, I can go to the store, and then the next day I'm like, I don't even want to go outside. I don't want to deal with anything. I just want to shut away from the world. And a lot of it has to do with what happens to people who look like me. And I could be driving down a road and get pulled over, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make it home.
Yeah.
And but even when I went to college and after when I graduated and I was looking for jobs, and because of my name, people wouldn't say it blatantly in my face, but a lot of the times it's like, are you sure you went to UPenn or was it Penn State?
Oof.
Like I wouldn't know what college I graduated
from. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so, and I'm going to be honest, those of us who have like really urban, ethnic names, we go through that. And a lot of times we don't get the call for the job, so then it's that aspect. And then, being a woman of color in the pay scale is that aspect. So like all of those things we think about, and it affects us, and it causes us to, number one, have to deal with and confront mental issues like, like anxiety, like depression, all of those things. And two, not necessarily feeling like you can share this with people. It's like people say, oh yeah, I totally get it. I feel you, but there's no help. Yeah. So what do? You get some meds and you take them and you cope, but what happens if you run out of meds? And that was just, there's a scene in there where one of her pills falls in the toilet. And it's a whole other thing about that. It was supposed to be a funny joke that happened at that scene, but you know how it goes in filmmaking. It didn't make it. So her losing that pill ultimately caused the breakdown of her actual self getting on camera. You know, so it's like we're so in this society, we're so stuck on medicating everything until it's like there has to be alternatives to that. But if I don't have my medication, how do I cope? You know, it was that type.
Yeah, because you don't have any other, because we don't have those alternatives. Like here, we just have this westernized idea of like mental health and betterment. Like,
so, and I mean, the solution is dismantling the systems, but that's not something that like one person can do tomorrow. Like, so it's a lot more complicated than that. That's so real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long story short, that's where the anxiety came from.
Yeah. Well, it actually, so we had watched it at the screening on Friday, and Kat had brought up this really like amazing, like, cause you know, sometimes we're just like living and we never really stop to think like, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, are we allowed to complain? Just about like how like if you were to go to therapy, right, Kat? It was that doesn't.
Yeah, there was a TikToker who I had seen that essentially was saying that, like, specifically, whenever she was giving anxiety diagnoses to her like BIPOC patients, that all she could really do was offer them methods to cope, because the reality was that it wasn't like they were anxious about something they can't, like they shouldn't, is irrational, like they shouldn't be anxious about because the systems that exist make that necessary. Like that's a means of survival. So like all that they could really do as a therapist was provide methods of coping, because the solution would be to dismantle all the systems, but that's not something like they have the ability to do right now. So like, yeah, all they could do was give it medicine, give like coping mechanisms, and like talk to them about like what the realities of what was happening was.
Yeah. Because those triggers aren't going away, like just because we've acknowledged them, or like usually if like something's harming you, you remove yourself from that. But we can't when it's the people in power, the you know, that are doing that, right? Like, how do you remove yourself from all of society?
Reality,
like, it's not how that works. Which I, you know, like for me watching, I had this like. Understanding of code switching with Jess, of like being her authentic self and then switching into her influencer self, and that's like, because I was like, that's what it does. And so I kind of wanted to pick your brain about like what your thoughts are on the toll that code switching takes on like creatives who are constantly having to kind of navigate several different worlds and beings of themselves in each of those worlds.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position to be in, I would think, simply because of expectation, right? So if you're even a micro influencer, and that's why I chose a micro influencer, it's like you don't have millions of followers, but you do have, you know, a core group of people who expect you to be a certain person. So with that, like even in the film, when Jess was her natural self, I don't know if you noticed, but she didn't have as many comments on, actually she didn't have any comments on screen, and the viewers was very low, right? But when she came back as her influencer self, then it's all these comments, and it was to show that we are praising people into being something that they're not. Like we're just praising that, and when they try to be themselves, is frowned upon. It's like, I mean, could you imagine if let's say Kim Kardashian decided to get rid of implants or something? You know what I mean? Like, how would people take her then if she decided, like, you know what, I'm okay with my natural body. I don't want to deal with any surgeries I had. I'd rather just be me. You know how much flack she would get for that? Because she already put out this person, this persona of, you know, this is the look, this is the look that works, and this is what people want to see, and this is brand me for. And I just think it's just difficult for people to actually come on camera without makeup. Like I do it all the time, but those who are it's like they feel like, oh no, I have to be perfect. Like I have to look a certain way before I get on camera. And it's just like, but what are we showing?
And for who?
For who? And what are we showing young girls who are looking up to you and thinking like, oh, well, I need lip fillers if I want to, have a certain type of look, or I need a nose job, or it's just like, it's crazy because it's like, can we really blame the influencer, or do we blame the audience, or who do we blame? Like,
because they're doing what like they're encouraged to do. Like they're like, this is what gets attention. This is what gets success. And to a point, it's like it might even be the only form of appreciation or gratification that you receive. Like, and maybe in your daily life, people aren't paying attention to you, right? And so that's all you have are those likes. Like all you have are those comments of people like intruding on your life. So you're afraid to lose them, which like just keeps pushing you into that. And there really is no way out, which can be, it's honestly like its own horror story.
It really is.
It's also like you're damned if you do, you damned if you don't kind of thing too. Because it's like when you're all done up, sometimes you'll get people who are like, you look so pretty without all that makeup on your face. And then you take it off and it's like, you look tired. You look really tired today.
That's the one, tired.
Are you feeling okay? Because you look tired. Like, it's just like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
And now you're checking the mirror like, oh my God, maybe I need to put concealer on and this foundation. And it's just like, no. Like I tried it. I tried the whole like being done up all the time. I'll do it sometimes, but it's too much work. It's just
it's a lot of
too much work. I'm like, maybe just a little bit of lipstick and a lip gloss and I'm out the door. It's just an hour trying to blend foundation with concealer and putting lashes on, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I tried lashes and one of them was like hanging off. Listen,
man.
I was like, I don't know how women do this because this is too much work for me.
I almost glued my eyelids together. I was like, like that's it for me. I'm just gonna be winking at everybody. I can't open this anymore. It's a struggle.
It's so funny.
Kat, do you have a question?
Yeah. Well, like a question, but also just like, I really love this film. It was amazing. And I think it achieves something that like, I couldn't believe that this was your first horror film because it achieves something that like we love so much about horror, and that it's often used as like a media for processing very real life horrors and like the impact that has. And it was done so well. And I was like, how is this? How first film? And I just, I really want to say, I hope you keep making horror movies because it was great.
I think we all should make it together.
Yes.
I said that in the car. I was like, oh, Shameka, we need to make films. But like everything felt very intentional in the presentation of everything. It just like really hit. And it reminded me a little bit of Babadook even, and like how mental health was kind of represented, and that you kind of have to live with your anxiety. You have to live with the things that kind of haunt you and your trauma. But do you think this will ever be like a feature, or will there be a sequel, or like do you think you'll make more horror films kind of?
Well, let me tell you, at first I thought it's just going to be a horror film. I mean, it's just horror. It's not that deep, right? Oh boy, I have such an appreciation for the genre. Because in the edit, it was just like trying to figure out, number one, how do you like make somebody scared a little bit, or like catch them off guard, or, do that, right? But then two, not do it in a cheesy way where people just say, no, that's not working. And I didn't want to do a slasher film just because I will do one though. I just didn't want to do one for this. I would do a slasher film. I would love to do that. So I'm thinking about either going back to the script and maybe give him more of a backstory to Jess and possibly make it a feature or a longer short. That's what I'm thinking about doing. I'm not sure yet because I was just like, it's over. I got it done. I'm gonna step away for a little bit and take a break. But yes, I will definitely do horror again. My inspirations are like Jordan Peele or Misha Green, like that type of horror I really enjoy. But let's be fair, Shameka, I love a Freddy Krueger movie. I love Nightmare. But you can actually kind of see, and I really didn't realize this until I was watching Netflix, The Movies That Made Us. And they had the whole episode about Nightmare on Elm Street. And I was like, wait a minute. The stuff that I kind of incorporated in my short is similar to like a Freddy character who only shows up when you're asleep. I'm like, she was asleep, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
She was sitting on her bed. That similar.
It was like that surprise or that character is always lurking in the background that you don't really see, but just hops out at you. So yeah, well anyway, I may be crazy, but
when you're like least
I kind of felt, yeah, and I kind of felt that, like, you know how Freddy would. It's very scary for someone to like torture you in your dreams and then you end up like dying in real life. Like, that's crazy. You don't ever want to sleep again. And when I was a kid, sneaking and watching Nightmare on the Street, that's how I felt. Like, oh gosh, don't ever want to go to sleep because Freddy's going to get me. But now, I mean, for a lot of us in this society, we're living in a constant nightmare. We are, you know, and it's not even always about race, because in Philadelphia, we have a huge gun violence problem, right? So, I mean, I'm a mom, and I have a son who likes to go to the store, and I'm paranoid when he wants to go to the store because I don't know if he's going to make it back home. And I'm just being honest, and the store is literally down the street. But so much happens here in Philly, and there's no specific type of person that this stuff happens to. I was watching the news in a car. A guy had a heart attack or something in his car, and he ran over a mother and child and killed them.
Yeah.
They were just, she just picked them up from school and walked home. And I'm like, society can be a doozy. So with just thinking of that, you know, it's constantly like, we're all, especially, you know, people of color, we're always on like heightened alert. Like, we have to watch everything from if we're driving down to if we're just walking to the store. We have to constantly like watch our surroundings and make sure that we are at least safe, you know, even in neighborhoods. So that's that aspect, which is probably totally not answering your question, but it just fits into, like, it's just tough. But at the end of the day, you can take those things and you don't have to make them, I guess, have you so scared in life, because we have to continue to live. And so with filmmaking, you can illuminate these stories, you can amplify these stories, and it gives you the opportunity to create content that sparks dialogue, but it also gives you a sense of release. Like, I don't want to go to a therapist, but I can get it out this way, you know? And hopefully if someone watches it and don't quite understand what it's like to be a Black woman, maybe we can have that conversation, and maybe we can start the process of dismantling some thoughts and some stereotypes where we'll work towards dismantling the system. I really think it starts with us and having those tough conversations. So to answer your question, yes, I will definitely do another horror. I love it. It's not easy, but I love the challenge, and I love what you can do with horror and how you can really spark a lot of conversations with it.
Yeah, yeah, because it could be like a cathartic experience, right? Like for you as a creator, like because you're like getting it out, like you're releasing that story that's like in here. But it's also for like viewers who can see themselves represented on screen and be like, I went through that. And I think it also like with kind of Jess when she is like open and honest and has that kind of discussion about herself, I do feel like there, people might look to that. And then the next time, instead of just jumping to like, ooh, like you being this day, like maybe we should think like, try to think of where everyone's coming from. Like, let's all like give each other some space and understanding, especially in the fact that we're an entire panini press, as says right now, right? Like we're in a pandemic. We need space. Like people just need a space. And I think horror can really do that and doesn't often get a lot of credit for being a tool for therapy and just like, it's just like we're all going through this, and even if you're not, you can like relate in the fact that like you've been afraid before, right? You've felt unsafe or uncertain, or like you're not alone, right? Like we've all had that, so you can it kind of opens it up a little easier for you to relate to an experience more than maybe some of other genres might do. There's man, where was my question? Because I'm just like, let me talk about all the things I love. Oh, so something that like we've discussed on our show with like guests in the past is that creating horror, like it is cathartic, but sometimes like as like creatives and like especially for like the actors who are recreating these traumas, right? Like they're often put into these positions where it could be really traumatizing. Honestly, like it could be really severe, and some of them have been downright tortured. Like you think of what's his I don't want to say his name. The Shining. Thank you. Just thinking about like how that poor woman was tortured for what, right? Like for what? And when we were and we've talked about that with Take Back the Night, which was a really amazing film about sexual abuse. And so it was like, how do we as creatives like make the stories so that it could be that cathartic experience, and so that we're kind of serving that purpose of educating others who either don't know or to share experiences with people who do, but also make sure that like everyone's good. Like you good.
Right.
And so I really appreciated your approach to media making, especially for horror. So I loved for you to share that with our listeners on how you ensured that your set was a safe environment for everyone involved, and like we weren't creating more trauma while trying to work through them.
Right. Well, one thing, when I was writing the script, I didn't want to like beat someone over the head with issues that, women of color face. I wrote it from a point of view where I just wanted understanding. And that was one of the, someone at the Cine Speak event came up and she said, you know what, I really appreciate how you wrote that. She said, because I didn't feel like you were, pointing a finger at me, but I got a better understanding of the weight that the character was feeling, because I didn't feel like I was being personally judged for who I am. And I was like, great, because that's what I was going for. I don't necessarily want to point a finger. I just want to show that these are our feelings. And when you see us, and maybe we're not having a good day, and this is probably why, because there's a lot of weight on our shoulders dealing with different things. Not necessarily saying that it's any particular person's fault, but I just want you to understand me as a woman and as a woman of color. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, on set, I made sure that the main character, her alter ego, who was tormenting her, actually her mother. I didn't want anyone to handle her who didn't have a relationship with her. It sounds weird, but I know a mother is going to make sure that her daughter is okay, regardless of what's happening, right? And then also too, like I gave Trick Betty, who is a guy, the opportunity to direct this, and I just wanted to see what would be his take on how to shoot the scenes and how to direct the actor, just because, you know, I wanted to just get an idea how guys would view this and how they would take on this challenge of this totally woman-centered film, and not take away from the things or what we want the audience to experience. So it was really interesting to watch him figure out how we want to shoot certain scenes and direct the actors and stuff like that. But making sure that everyone was safe mentally was a huge part of it. So we had some conversations about, you know, why you think this is important? Why should we make this choice? Because a guy directing, he doesn't understand either. Even if he's a Black guy, he doesn't really understand like what we women and Black women go through. So trying to get him in the headspace of just like, this is her life. Like, she's a micro influencer, but she feels she has a duty to this audience. They expect her to show up, and they expect a certain part of Jess to show up. They can care less about who she really is. What they want is the person that they clicked on the video and liked and followed her, because that's the person they want to follow. They don't want to follow the real her. They want to follow the person that's wearing the mask. So getting him into understanding it and having him watch actual YouTube videos of influencers doing makeup and doing hair and get ready with me, putting on clothes and what I'm doing for today. And he was like, oh, I was like, this is a thing. Like, this didn't just come out of thin air. There's actually videos that's Get Ready With Me where people are just getting dressed, putting on makeup to go out.
Yeah.
And look at all the views they get. I said, so this is what our society has come to.
Yeah.
Watch people do things. But you just have to understand the psychology behind it. There's probably a young woman watching who looks up to Jess and wants to be like Jess, you know, so she wants to know what Jess is wearing and how she did her hair and where she got her makeup. So just trying to make sure that the guys on set understood the power of these videos and how they influence young people to the fullest, and just making sure that they stay true to that vision. Because at one point they were trying to shoot the scene a different way. I said, no, you have to watch the actual video. There's just a camera straight on.
Yeah.
And they're talking to the camera. We're not cutting away to anything because that's not authentic to how these videos got. You know, so just having those conversations, it was fun. But it was also a learning opportunity for them to see, like, I know guys don't really watch these, but women do.
That's so funny. Yeah, because it's like education in the film, but on set. Like, I love that. There's like I'm always fascinated by a new trend that comes up, like, you know, Jolly Butcher's in an unboxing video, because I'm like, that's perplexing to me. I'm like, how do people just watch someone open a box and they're like, oh, nice, and like, what are we doing? Like, why do you
are famous for doing that?
I did one of those when I first got my guitar, and actually, to my surprise, when I put it on TikTok, I was like, nobody's gonna care about that. And I went back, and that video had the highest views. I was like, what is it with these videos? I was just playing around. Yeah. So I thoroughly appreciated that film. I was like, yes.
And like, it's funny because like Get Ready With Me, like that's there's a TikToker that I follow who does Get Ready With Me's, where they're getting like ready for a date, and so they'll be like, this is what I'm wearing. But they also like what I like about them is they'll like tell stories about like old dates that they had, or they'll comment because someone said something real out of pocket, like in their comments from their last video. So they're like, let me educate you on some like sexist narrative, like, and I like live for it, like, because it's not really like get ready with me, like that's a part of it. Like they will stop and be like, here's the lip gloss I'm using, but then they like go back to their tirade. And I when I saw that was the title of the film, I was like, oh, this is gonna be really interesting, because it's like like I already had like this understanding of like what that, at least what kind of person Jess was gonna be, because I know what Get Ready With Me videos are like. And now I know what
it's
your
more about
social
the
media
conversation,
influencers
right?
are. Yeah.
It's about the story. It's really not about what they're doing or what they're putting on, but you get so caught up until you feel like you know them. It's like, oh yeah, just about to talk about, you know, that day when she went somewhere. And TikTok, I'm gonna tell you. It's great, but it's the worst, because you'll go there and you're like, okay, I'm just going passing time.
Yeah.
An hour goes by, and then a guy comes on screen like, hey, you've been scrolling for a long time. You're like,
have you drank water today? And you're like, you're right. Like, I haven't.
It starts quite like they start to get you, like they said, like your For You page gets like real scary, because sometimes you're just like, how did you know? Like I didn't even know, like I didn't even admit that to myself yet. You know that's what I am. Like, how did that happen? It's so crazy what, like, you know, social media has evolved into. And I think it's like, you know, it could be harmful. There's a lot of harmful things about it too, but I think there's like this kind of revolution about it. There's almost like renaissance of social media, where it's also being used as a tool for education, or like to combat like some of the problems that we see in society. Like even just thinking, like there was like a horrible hashtag at some point, and I remember it just got totally like ruined on Twitter because of all the K-pop stans, like BTS stans, like went in and were like ruining it, like by just posting their favorite pictures using that hashtag, and just ruin that hashtag. Like, like that's insane. Like that we just have the power of like people that you're never going to meet in like physical world, which is like a whole other tangent.
It also pushes like for activism a lot too. Like I'll always see like they'll like call this person because this has happened, and it's like giving attention to things that otherwise maybe would not get attention. I know like Twitter was like, when the protests were like, that was like the way you followed what was happening was Twitter or Facebook Live.
I knew where things were.
Yeah. And like extending past that, like there's a lot of activism that takes place on TikTok alone. Like that is like really doing really positive and effective change, because it's connecting people that otherwise wouldn't have talked to each other ever. So yeah, good and bad.
One thing that we like to do, and then we'll kind of wrap up, unless Kat, did you have another question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. If it comes out, Lily, one thing we like to do when we have guests on, just because it's a practice that we like to put into our work, because the horror that we're usually covering, both on screen and societally, can be really heavy, right? Like it could be really daunting. And I think it's super important to put people through that, and to like, you know, have them kind of look those traumas in the eye. But I think the second part, and like an equally important part of filmmaking process, is what happens next. And so we always like to kind of ask our other filmmakers, and also ask ourselves when we're approaching these topics, is what advice do you have for people to help with issues that are covered in your film? So like they watched it, they feel really bad or really sad, or they're kind of living through this thing, and now they're motivated to do something about it. What should they do?
Yeah. So for those who are dealing with mental illness, or I would suggest that definitely get help from wherever you can. I know for anxiety, meditation is probably like one of the major ways to go with dealing with anxiety. Also, like yoga. But two, know that you're not alone, that there are plenty other people who are going through the same exact thing. But definitely get help. Like, don't think that no one wants to hear you or you're not important, definitely figure out how to get some help, who you can talk to, talk to your parents or find a good friend or a counselor or someone who can point you in the right direction for getting help. But always know you are never alone. For those who are interested in conversing about race relations and issues that people of color face in society, yeah, there's a lot of us around.
Yeah.
Who are more than willing to have the conversation with you, and who are willing to come from a point of education and understanding. Because I know that some people feel like they don't really want to have those conversations because they don't want to feel like they're in a position of being like talked down to or having an argument or blatantly labeled a Karen without even showing that they have those tendencies. Right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of us out here who will definitely have that conversation with you and are open to having that conversation, are open to understanding your point of view, because it goes both ways. We cannot ask for someone to understand exactly what we're going through without having an understanding on their end as well. So I think that we definitely need to have more opportunities where even if it's just women can get in the room together and have hard conversations without feeling like they're going to be demonized for maybe having a certain thought. Just creating like safe spaces for those conversations. I think if we can start this at ground level, then that's how we can start creating change. I just think that a lot of the times, like, people think they know something, so they think they see a certain person, think they know who that person is or how they're going to react without actually having a conversation about it. I think I saw this video of this library somewhere where people are the books. So I cannot remember what it was called, and it probably was on TikTok or something. But if you came into this library, instead of reading a book, you get to learn about another person. And so it can be a person from any ethnic group or whatever, but you would sit down. So say, for instance, if I'm Christian, right, and I want to learn more about Islam, there's a Muslim person there that I can sit down with and have a conversation with. So I think when you create more spaces like that, it can start moving the needle towards us figuring out, the society and how to make things more equal for all of us. I know that's a long way to go. And I know there are still some people who hold certain types of thoughts about different groups. But, for those who are open for those conversations, I think definitely seek out ways to create safe spaces to have those conversations. And then when you learn this information, don't just learn and do nothing with it. Figure out ways you can take this information and create change in yourself and in your society.
Yeah, because the power is in the people, right? And we're starting to really see that because, as Kat said, we're in a peasants' revolt right now. Like the people are starting to be like, wait a second, this is not adding up. We don't want to work for nothing. We realize that we can. We realize that's allowed. So we're going to demand what we can demand because we have that opportunity. And I think there is this idea of we all have a lot of unlearning to do. Right?
Yes.
Like we have all been fed very specific narratives since the beginning of our lives. And by having those conversations, we can start to unlearn and kind of meet people where they're at and see where they're starting from. So we can be like, let's fill in those gaps. Let's change, let's change some minds.
Right.
And if we can do that, then yeah, I think we get closer and it doesn't seem as impossible to dismantle those systems. Like it really just takes people realizing that we should want to and that we can. Like as soon as people realize like, oh no, it's okay to say like we should abolish prisons. Like it's okay to say that. Like it's okay to understand that like there's like food disparities. Like there's so many things to address. And it's okay for us to look at them and be like, that's wrong. The way things have been done is wrong.
Exactly. And how do we fix this? What do we need to do to create change? You know, and I think if more of us is more open, you know, it's a lot of us who are, like you said, they've been fed a narrative and that's what all they've known. And then the media is a huge narrative in itself.
Yeah.
You know, all types of different narratives to individuals. And it's like, you know, just be open. Just be open.
Yeah. And films like these and like, programs like Five Shorts where we're allowing people to tell those stories, like we get to do something outside of mainstream media without this other like intent or motivation. Like it's simply just to tell our stories and to share them and for people to see something that they wouldn't see on the TV because they don't want us there. But we want us there, so we're gonna make it.
Exactly. We have the internet now, so it's like
like you all done. Like all the old people who don't know how to use Twitter, like you don't know what goes on there. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shameka. This has been amazing. Just as amazing as I thought, if not more. Just like the film. It was like, I'm telling you, I was so excited. It was like, that's it. And I really do hope people check out the film. You know, you're doing your like film festival circuit. But where can our listeners and viewers find you so that they can keep up with what you're creating with Five Shorts and all your other programs, as well as like your documentary, and so that they know where to look when GRWM is ready?
Sure. So first and foremost, I want to thank both of you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm happy I finally made it on this podcast.
Yay.
I think I did an amazing job. I love it. It's very diverse and it's very different from some of the other things that are out there. So I love it. So thank you so much. You can find me on social media at 5 Shorts Project. That's the number 5. Shorts, SHORTS Project. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm getting better at Twitter. I'm still working on it.
It's rough.
Twitter's overwhelming sometimes. It's real. It's a lot going on.
And you can check out the website, 5shorts.org, to find out more information about the project. Tomorrow, I will be screening my short documentary about my youngest brother. Sometimes I Cry in June. Doing that here in Germantown, Philadelphia, at the Our House Cultural Center on Germantown Avenue. So, yeah, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see the information there if you're interested in checking that out. And, yeah, I'm around, mostly on Instagram, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're always posting things on Instagram. You always got events going on. I saw you got your screenwriting workshop. Like, there's always something where I'm just like, yes, like it's happening. Yes. Well, Kat, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
I hope we do make a film because that'd be really fun. And keep doing it because I really love your film and it's amazing. And I can't wait to see what comes out next.
Thank you.
Yes. That will definitely happen because we make our fun films, but we have been constantly talking about like actually using all this like analysis that we do to make some intentionally like social horror films. So we'll be connecting with you when we're ready to do that.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shameka, and don't get married.
I'll eat your kids.